Now, I would like to take a minute to introduce my close advisor and friend, Tom Robertson. Tom is a longtime member of the marketing faculty here at Wharton. As Dean, he provides strategic vision for all of our educational, research, and outreach programs, advancing Wharton as a source of innovation and a force for good around the world. He is currently leading Wharton's $550 million fundraising campaign with an emphasis on student scholarships, hiring world-class faculty, and programs in such areas as global leadership, entrepreneurship, and social impact. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dean Thomas Robertson.
You want your speech? Yes. Keep it as a souvenir. Hi, everyone. It's wonderful, wonderful to see you, and thank you very much, Daniel. Several years ago, I was at my alma mater for a similar event, and in the course of the outdoor ceremony, the speaker's notes blew away. And what do you think the audience did? They cheered. Give you one other example. A friend gave me this advice about my role here today. He said, "Tom, think of yourself as the body at an Irish wake. They need you to have the party, but nobody expects you to say very much." So with that in mind, I will try to be reasonably brief, but I do want to say a few words of congratulations and a few words which I hope are meaningful for our wonderful, wonderful graduates. As graduates, I know you have all made considerable sacrifices in time, effort, and foregone income to receive your MBAs. But your studies truly have been a team effort in the classroom and learning teams and off campus where spouses, parents, relatives, and friends have pitched in to help you across the finish line. Many of them have joined us here today, and they claim our affection and have earned our gratitude for the support they've provided. Won't you join me in showing our appreciation for all that they've done on your behalf, please? I don't know who gets the award for coming in the furthest. We'll try to figure that out later. Today's ceremony says something important about human nature. We're drawn to the idea of permanence. And we mark the occasion by wearing these robes and hats following a design that can be traced back for hundreds of years. If anyone tells you the human society doesn't advance, you might try reminding them that what you're wearing today was once considered high fashion. All your years of hard work have earned you this special privilege to be able to dress just like the junior recording secretary at the Spanish Inquisition. Nonetheless, these robes are important. They're a visible way of connecting us with our past, of highlighting our part in the university's veritable heritage, and they show how we're all part of a continuance, that what you have accomplished has a measure of permanence. But they also create something of an illusion. The permanence we envision is not a reality. Hap and mishap govern the world, says an old English proverb, and nowhere is this more true than the world of business. To quote business writer Jim Collins, anyone can fall, and most eventually do. Take the fabled Fortune 500, the list of America's largest corporations ranked by revenue every year since 1955. Of that first list of 500, only 62 companies remain. And in the past 2 years alone, 71 companies have fallen from the Fortune 500 list. Names such as Anheuser-Busch, Bear Stearns, Circuit City, Lehman, Merrill Lynch, Tribune. Now, some of those are admittedly mergers, and some of them no longer exist. And what about the Dow Jones Industrial Average, created in 1896 to give a dollar-weighted average of the leading companies representing American industry? Maybe you'll enjoy this. Companies such as the Distilling and Cattle Feeding Company, the National Lead Company, the American Tobacco Company. Of the original Dow Jones companies, only one name remains: General Electric. So hap and mishap rule the world, and they define the business space, the world you're choosing to enter. So no matter how carefully you plan, your path ahead will not be predictable. In fact, it might not feel much like a path at all. At times, it will seem as if you've gone through the looking glass and entered a world in which the landscapes and rules are forever changing. I don't mean to alarm you, quite the opposite, actually. The real reason we celebrate today is because you, our newest Wharton graduates, will soon be the ones leading the change. Your role from this day forward is not to reflect the world, but to shape it. In order to shape the world, however, you must first mold yourself. The era of a lifelong contract between employer and employee has ended. It is a fact of life that you have to build your own personal brand to achieve ongoing success. Your personal brand, or the brand you develop for the company you start, will depend upon your integrity and reputation, the spirit of innovation you bring to every facet of your life, and your ability to develop and evolve. In a challenging world, this is all you have. Steve Jobs certainly saw the world change in 1985 when he was forced out of the company he helped create. 12 years later, Apple stock was trading at only $4.67, wish we'd known that then, and its market share of personal computers in the US had fallen to less than 4%. Clearly, this was a company with nowhere to go. But Apple re-embraced Steve Jobs, who in the meantime had built Pixar into an entertainment juggernaut, and next into an influential company in the computer space, precisely because of the personal brand he had created. He was a fearless innovator, the kind of leader who could be counted on to anticipate and create new markets. And indeed, here we all are taking pictures of the event with our iPhones. As the world changes and old problems are solved, those who endure are the ones who align themselves with new directions and new opportunities. By exercising your integrity, your innovative spirit, and your willingness to reinvent yourself from time to time, you'll find yourself fulfilled and challenged, actively shaping the world. It was Penn's great founder, Benjamin Franklin, who observed that our success and happiness are achieved not so much by great pieces of good fortune that seldom happen, as by little advantages that occur every day. Franklin knew from his own business achievements that success almost never depends on a single heroic moment. True success is much less dramatic. It's a continuous process of evolution, of moving forward in small, thoughtful steps. This is, of course, especially true of your business education. The challenge for any MBA program today is that the global economy is changing rapidly. New markets are constantly emerging. You all know the BRIC countries: Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Now we also have CIVETs: Colombia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Egypt, Turkey, and South Africa as the new growth entities. 20 years from now, we will no doubt have a new acronym to guide us. The same is true of technology. Many of the businesses and industries that you will one day lead don't yet exist. Hedge funds, private equity, internet-based businesses, biotechnology, which are now enormous areas of opportunity, essentially did not exist 20 years ago. By the same token, in 2031, many of you will find yourself not in these businesses, but in personalized medicine, regenerative medicine, informatics, nanotechnology, machine learning, 3D data storage, quantum computing, and countless others that I can't even begin to imagine. The point is that at least half of you are going to work in industries that do not exist today. Today is a proud moment, but the real measure of your achievement will occur over the course of a long adventure. It will develop, as our university's founder observed, by little advantages that occur every day. Today, you leave not having learned, but rather moving another step along in your learning. Congratulations, graduates. Go forth, do great things, make us proud, for certainly we're very proud of you. Thank you. Thank you, and now it's my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Vikram Pandit. Dr. Pandit is Chief Executive Officer of Citigroup, one of the world's leading financial services companies, which does business in more than 160 countries and jurisdictions, which is pretty good. There are only 200 countries in the world. As CEO since December of 2007, he has engineered a structural and financial transformation of the firm during the most challenging economic environment since the Great Depression. Born in India, Mr. Pandit moved to the United States at age 16, enrolled in Columbia University, and earning his BS and MS degrees in engineering and his PhD in finance. Early in his career, he was a finance professor at Indiana University. Upon his appointment as CEO, Mr. Pandit embarked on a plan to refocus, recapitalize, and restructure Citi. He has made responsible finance a priority and has taken the company's historic core strengths of serving clients and supporting economic growth and focused them on the largest market opportunities. Vikram Pandit exemplifies innovative leadership in times of extraordinary change, and I hope you will join me in welcoming him to the podium. Please.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dean Robertson, for that introduction. And there is no chance that my pages are going to fly away today. But congratulations to all the graduates, your parents, your significant others, your friends, supporters. You all have much to be proud of today. You join a long list of distinguished alumni from this proud institution, America's first and still its premier business school. I went to the second oldest business school in the country, but I have nothing but tremendous respect for Wharton. My company, Citi, hires a number of Wharton grads every year. This year alone, 25 of you and 67 undergraduates will be joining Citi, and more importantly, we haven't given up on the rest of you either. I must also commend you and congratulate you on your sense of timing. In the last 2 decades, these are probably the 2 best years to be in school. You know, it was a great time to study the key issues of both the American and global economies. The only way to have learned more is to have lived it, an experience that I can assure you was not full of pure enjoyment either. So over the last 2 years, as you've been being educated, I too was getting educated, facing crises, making decisions, and many of them very difficult. People ask me quite often, they say, what prepared you to make these decisions? And certainly I had no formula. There were no cases, there were no courses, the problems were too new. They were too unique, too complex, and the world was too fast-moving for any of that. At the same time, I also had a whole career to look back on, a series of decisions that got me to that point. And those decisions were not necessarily made with foresight. I never really planned my career, and I made decisions along the way that I thought made the most sense. And I cannot say that those decisions in and of themselves somehow prepared me for what lay ahead, but they did hone my instincts and give me confidence in my judgments, and I thought I'd share some of those decisions with you today. The first important career decision was to determine what I really liked to do. Now, like any good Indian son, I had to become an engineer or a doctor. I'm sure some of you can relate to that expectation. So I chose engineering, but two things became very clear. First, I was not passionate about it, and two, I was not great at it. So I decided, I should switch to finance, thinking that the world could always use another banker. I got my master's, I got my PhD, and I figured out, by the way, that as I took my next logical step, which was teaching, that I wasn't any better at teaching either. It was clear to me, though, that I had passion for the subject, but that passion did not translate into a passion for teaching it. I was much more interested in practice than in theory, which then led me to my second big decisions, where to go next. Leaving academia for Wall Street was extremely risky. I already had a major teaching job at a university, and as your professors can tell you, they are hard to get and quite coveted. So I had to get this right. I really had to find the right culture and the right company. And back in 1983, I chose Morgan Stanley, attracted above all by its culture at that time. In those days, it was a small company. There were about 2,500 people. It was a private partnership, which means that all senior bankers put their own money on the line every day. They had skin in the game. And the whole purpose of the firm was focused on one and only one thing, which was serving clients. Bankers were hired for the long term. It was not meant to be a place where you put 2 years to work and then moved on. Hiring meant making a long-term commitment to employees, and this was an apprenticeship model of learning. No one was ever left alone to sink or swim. Every process was collaborative. And yet, we were also trusted and given the freedom and responsibility to succeed without micromanagement. While the atmosphere was intense, it was also not a dog-eat-dog competitive environment. People helped each other, and it became very clear over time who thrived in the firm's culture and who did not. It was a true meritocracy. Two things mattered more than anything else: integrity and quality. Was our work guided at all times by the best interest of our client? And was it absolutely first class in every respect? Over time, I rose to become the head of the syndicate desk at Morgan Stanley, and when companies wanted to go public, I wanted to get the deal. I was fortunate to price deals like Netscape and Cisco and Compaq, and do a lot of major capital raises for General Motors, GE, IBM. I became used to being my own person, posting my own results, and being accountable for myself. But soon I faced the third key decision, and I consider this to be a turning point. Would I remain an individual producer, or would I take on the responsibility of producing the producers? Could I groom and manage my own team and take pride not in my achievement, but in what others achieved? And there was only one way to find out. It required stepping out of my comfort zone, which can be risky and extremely scary, but I did it. I accepted the job as the head of the derivatives business. And managing people is so much more complex than managing projects, but it's also a lot more rewarding. It's a lot more conducive to personal growth. The fourth key decision was the hardest of all. I had spent nearly all my career at Morgan Stanley. I was told that I was going to be groomed for the top job. Morgan Stanley merged with Dean Witter, and I became the president of the part of the company that constituted the old Morgan Stanley. The problem was that the merger had changed the culture of the company. My vision was too different from what the company was becoming. I wanted to emphasize what I thought was the best of Morgan Stanley's talent-based entrepreneurial culture. The company, on the other hand, seemed to be headed in a more process and product-driven direction. And I don't doubt that had I stayed, I would have been successful to all outward appearances. But that was not the company I wanted to run, and so I left. I started a business with a talented team of partners with whom I had been working for years. Our business was soon acquired by Citi. We were thrilled to become part of a 200-year tradition and to join the only bank active in virtually every country around the world. Now, when the troubles at Citi started to become apparent, the CEO asked me to take over Citi's institutional clients business. This is essentially the same business I ran at Morgan Stanley, somewhat larger with a few more businesses on top of that, but that's not what I had come to Citi to do. But I couldn't say no. And that's my fifth decision that I want to share with you. And the reason was very simple. When your boss asks you to do something, you can't refuse, unless it's unethical or unless it's simply wrong for you, and this wasn't. The team needed me in that role at that time, and so I took the job. But that didn't last long either. In a very short period of time, I faced another and the last important decision of my career. I was offered the job of CEO of the whole company, and this time there was no question that I would do it because I knew what needed to be done. To recap very briefly, for those of you who may not be familiar with the story, I became CEO of Citigroup in December 2007. Now, for those of you who know what happened at that time, that was a little bit like becoming the captain of Titanic after hitting the iceberg. So first, we needed to come up with a plan. We took a clear look at our company's DNA and our core strengths and the future of financial services. From there, it was a short step to understanding what parts of the company made sense for Citi's future and which businesses would better thrive elsewhere. We formulated a clear and credible plan, a return to our roots, get back to the basics of banking, put clients at the center of everything we do, and sell off non-core businesses, and we stuck to that plan. We had to be resolute. We had to be really resolute in staying the course. We were second-guessed from the outside and sometimes even from the inside, and almost continuously. The temptation to swerve from the plan was at times overwhelming, but we didn't. If I had, I would not be standing here with you today. The rough seas rising to a typhoon in late 2008, 2009 lasted 2 years. We needed significant help from the American taxpayers to survive, but we made it. Citi is now profitable and has been for 5 straight quarters. We're a much leaner company. We've shed nearly $500 billion of assets without compromising our global presence in 101 countries. And we repaid with gratitude the taxpayers in full, earning them a $12 billion profit on their investments. So for all of you here, if I were to distill down the lessons from my own experience, they are very simple. They're almost truisms and nothing that you haven't heard before, but they are worth internalizing. Find your passion and follow it. Choose the right company and culture. Don't fear leaving your comfort zone. Have the courage of your convictions and stay the course. As you graduate, you are entering a business world that is in some ways very similar to the one that I found in 1983, but in other ways it's very different. While the financial services industry is much larger today, I believe it looks a lot more like the industry in 1983 than that of 2008. It's more focused, on its core strength. It's more focused on serving clients. And in many ways, we're getting back to that culture that excited me in 1983. And at least we're instilling that culture every day at Citi. The wider world, on the other hand, is completely different. When I started, the domestic market was everything. Japan and Western Europe mattered too, but nowhere else. It was a hub and spoke world, and New York was the ultimate hub. Today, we live in a networked world. All roads no longer lead to a few key hubs. They go everywhere. They lead everywhere. Emerging economies can trade with each other without ever having a single banker, CEO, or government official ever set foot in New York, and do quite well. So your careers will be defined by massive trade and capital flows within the emerging markets, explosive growth in new consumer blocks as the middle class grows, and increased digitization, things that few of us, if any of us, were thinking about back in 1983. Ideas find support from capital more quickly than ever, which makes entrepreneurship more accessible than ever. But more ideas to choose from means more complexity and more opportunities to choose wrongly. So you're entering a very exciting world, but also more complex. I had to adapt to it over the course of my career. You've grown up with it. That gives you a very special advantage that I know you will use extremely wisely. So let me wish you the best for your future and all your careers, and however and wherever your paths might take you. Congratulations again, and thank you.